Just like to welcome everyone to the session today. There's a few housekeeping things that we just need to be mindful of, and that's obviously stay on mute unless you're invited to unmute for any questions. And obviously it's up to you whether you want your camera on or not. That's perfectly fine and a personal choice. Just to introduce myself, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicola Mann. I'm a HR manager at Brentwood and Rochford Council, but I'm also a board member of PPMA. So I'm welcoming the session in today, and we'll be introducing Adam Norse, who is going to run the webinar today around inclusive recruitment on behalf of Veredus. And yeah, so what we will be doing today is obviously recording the session. So but please note that only the speaker will be seen, and the recording will be available to you via email on our website after. If you've got any questions during Adam's presentation, then please pop them in the chat and we will try to get to them at the end of Adam's presentation. And also, yeah, and then obviously, yeah, and if we don't get time, then what we will do is come back to you in terms of any questions that you might have. So hopefully that's covered all the introductions, and I will hand over to Adam.
Thanks, Nicola. Good afternoon. In fact, it is officially afternoon. So good afternoon, Friday afternoon, everyone. Thanks. I was going to say giving up your Friday afternoon, but thanks for, let's say, investing your Friday afternoon here. So I know we're relatively short on time. This is condensed. So I work with Veredus. Veredus sits within Capita, who most people, specifically within the public sector, will have heard of. So we have the benefit of working with a large public organisation, but Veredus is a smaller talent consultancy, a little bit more nimble and able to serve clients and partner a little bit more closely. Areas of our business, we have an executive search team, an interim team, and I sit on our assessment and development and talent insights team. So in terms of how we're different to traditional recruitment, I'd say is we're we use data and research from people in the marketplace to drive decisions. So we back everything up with data. So we're going to talk about inclusive recruitment today. My colleague, who is the data analyst, has actually had to take care of her young son at quite last minute. So I'm going to bring more of the practical side of things as opposed to data. We're going to jump into that too. But I can share this at the end and we can talk in the Q&A or offline. But I want to make this as practical and useful as possible, really, so you can take away. And rather this being sort of death by presentation slides or PowerPoint, please, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat, or feel free to take yourself off mute and ask the question. I'll create some space. I certainly don't want this to be 30 minutes of me just talking at everybody. Because I've sat on the other end of a few of those and they're not my favorite, let's say that. So let's jump into this. Headline, as we address inclusive recruitment, this is an evolving topic, rightly so. We're learning all the time, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, learning from mistakes. I'm learning. I've got a lot of blind spots, a lot of areas for growth. So have Veredus. So we don't have the definitive answer. We'd like to think that the data and research we do backs it up, but this is an evolving topic. And I think the biggest thing for me and the biggest takeaway for me over the last 12 months has been the shift from inclusivity and inclusive recruitment being all about visible disabilities, the ones disabilities that you can see and that I grew up seeing on the TV, etc. To being accessible to everyone. And not all disabilities are you can't see them. They're not all disabilities. A few stats that my colleague usually would deliver and help us with is that 6% of the UK population wear glasses. 1 in 6 people are affected by hearing loss, And one of the biggest areas for us and Veredus and Capita is that 15% of the population is neurodiverse, which that was a huge blind spot for me 12 months ago. I'd never even considered how to speak to and how to resonate with neurodiverse candidates at all. So that's a big part of the work we do. We partner with a great organization called Genius Within that are really helping us refine on a daily basis how we speak to, how we attract, how we make recruitment accessible to neurodiverse candidates. Okay, I'm going to fly through quite a few of these slides so we can get through to the practical piece. But diversity and inclusion's obviously increasing. 90% of organizations claim to prioritize diversity, but only 4% of strategies actually consider disability. They only look at it through a disabled lens. So we want to accommodate everyone. And if recruitment isn't accessible to every demographic, I think for me, my background is a talent consultant and recruiter. I think for me, being accessible and being inclusive is the right thing to do. But I think secondly, it opens up a talent pool that's so much bigger, and there's so much talent that we have not had access to previously because we've not been inclusive. So for me as a recruiter, having more people to talk to and more candidates potentially to fill roles and move organizations forward, the better. We can share this. I will share this, and this is again what my colleague will talk about. But accessible recruitment is all about not just being accessible with a statement on websites and careers pages, but all across the employee's journey. So for HR professionals, that's about developing a culture and a common language that people use, everywhere from recruiting and hiring all the way through to exit interviews or letters where you're not progressing a candidate forward. So it's important that it's baked into the whole employee journey. Very high level, I'm going to fly through some of the topics here. Recruitment and hiring is obviously a huge part of inclusive recruitment. Implicit and unconscious bias. I'm not going to read verbatim what's on the screen here. Onboarding, engaging, development and progression. And we're going to touch upon quite a few of these in a minute. I just want to make sure we have enough time to go through everything. Inclusive recruitment, we talk about gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and then the neurodiverse. These are the biggest areas and the key challenges we're addressing right now across the UK that we're seeing as a talent consultancy. So challenges that we face, there's a lot, but I'd say that one of the biggest, being a data-led organization, is a lot of the data out there is heavily biased towards men. I think there's a stat that I had that I think 76% of voice recognition software, you've got a 76% chance of it not understanding your voice if you're a woman. And I think it's and the stats about drivers, I think 46% of women are seen as the stat is 46% of women are not regarded as safe drivers. And it all plays into the fact that a lot of the data we have is biased towards males, and that is something we've got to reframe. And how we reframe that is education, but also go into the source of primary data. Again, my colleague who's the data analyst that's usually sat on here with me will talk about that a lot more eloquently and accurately than I would, but we can certainly talk about that offline, and I can connect you with Alison, who I work with. Here you go. Voice recognition, 7% less likely to recognize a female voice, and a female driver is 40% more likely to be injured in a car accident than a male driver. So this is the more practical piece. This is where I'm looking to add some value to your current recruitment model, your talent acquisition strategies, and these are by no means exhaustive. There's a lot more mistakes, for want of a better term, but perhaps there's a better term to use there, that we see. But these are 3 areas that I see personally that organizations across public and private sector, but that we're doing a lot of work currently across the public sector, where I feel that once organizations grasp these areas and start to address them, they're really widening and seeing some great impact across their inclusive recruitment strategy. So this is number 1, and it's failure to do the groundwork. And what we mean by that is it's a perception analysis. A lot of organizations have great careers page. They have a great candidate experience all the way through the life cycle. From initial interview to exit, all the way through it, it's positive, and they get great feedback. But what they're failing to do, and where we help organizations, is to go out there and actually ask potential future candidates, what do you think of this organization? What are your thoughts? Would you consider them as an employer of choice? And that's different using a third party than it is asking them themselves, because they tell us the truth. They're not going to tell an employer usually, because they fear that might put a black name against the mark if they say something negative. But areas we ask candidates, what do you think of this organization? Do you see there as being opportunities for career mobility for candidates from diverse backgrounds? What have you heard about this organization? And what we do, we put together the data, we present it back to the organization, and then they can actually see blind spots of how they have not been resonating with external candidates. And we also speak to, as well as external candidates, we speak to current staff, recent joiners and leavers as well, to really find out and ask some tough questions around the organization. So we find that doing this groundwork before setting out on a talent acquisition strategy, regardless of how inclusive you think it is, this really sets yourself up for success, because you can find out what isn't working and start addressing that. So yeah, how do you engage with an audience if you don't know what resonates with them? How can you understand why you aren't connecting with diverse talent populations? So this is really important, and the feedback we get here and how we deliver it back is really powerful, and it really shapes a powerful talent acquisition strategy. Any questions there on perceptions? Conscious that I've spoken for 12 minutes there, I think. So any initial questions, anything in the chat, Nicola, or?
Nothing in the chat, Adam, so I think they're all intently listening to you and taking it all in.
Good. Okay, good. So the next area where I see is, again, is it a mistake or is it an area for growth, is when organizations operate too transactionally rather than relationally. So most organizations, when they have a vacancy, the hiring manager says, right, I'm looking for this position. They go and either advertise it on their website. Maybe they'll engage with a third-party recruiter or send it to their in-house team. It's very transactional. We have a vacancy. This is what we're going to do. The issue with that transactional nature is that you only have access then to the candidates who are currently in the market at that moment in time. the way we operate is we lead with relationships. So before any vacancies go live, we work with organizations to start talent mapping firstly, whereby we would start identifying potential candidates in the marketplace that could do the job. We map them, and then we start to have have conversations with them. So it's not an interview. We start saying, hey, we're working with this organization, with this council, with this agency. Are you interested in a conversation? Just learn about a little bit more about their plans and opportunities. So again, I think the key word here is a conversation as opposed to an interview. That changes the dynamic massively between the individuals. They open up more. They're, I'm going to say more honest, but I think they're more transparent with what they want and what they don't want. And it starts to build a relationship ahead of any vacancies coming live. And I think in terms of an inclusive recruitment lens, this allows you to build relationships with individuals from unrepresented demographics as well. So you might know you've got a vacancy coming up in December, and then 3, 4, sometimes 6 months ahead, it can be more. You have spent the time, I mean, we do this for a lot of organizations. You spent the time working with us to develop relationships and have conversations so that you can spend more focus time on diverse candidates and getting them on board. But when you are ready to go live with the vacancy, your speed to hire is a lot faster as well. And the difference, I mean, from a cost perspective for talent pipelining is these projects are charged on a time basis, not on a per candidate basis. So you can make multiple hires, which typically give you a huge return investment, 100+%. One of our, depending on the amount of work that goes into it, but a talent pipelining project costs typically what you pay to a recruitment organization for one fee, and we give multiple hires. So it not only helps you from an inclusive, proactive perspective financially, it makes a lot of sense as well. So for me, being relational as opposed to transactional is a huge area where there can be a lot of growth across talent acquisition in organizations. Any other questions there, or any questions around relationship-led recruiting and talent pipelining?
There's nothing in the chat, but I don't know if anyone...
Not sure whether to say that as a good thing or a bad thing. I've been extremely clear, or everyone's dozed off.
I think we're taking it all in.
Great. All right. I'll move on to the my last point as well. So an area that I think is really important to really start moving the needle for inclusive recruitment and pushing it forward is organizational diagnostics and talent assessments. So what they are, well, talent assessments are assessing for individuals' skills and behaviors. There's a lot of psychometric tests out there. We've got access to all of them. So you can use those at the entry point when taking candidates on board or looking to hire them. I'll talk about that in a minute. And organizational diagnostics, quite a fancy word, is really around getting a health check on the organization. So you can see what the impact level of individuals across an organization. So we have a great tool that we use called the GC Index, and you can see not only how an individual, what his or her behavior is like, but you can see their potential for impact, like where are their skills, where are their strengths, where are their energies, and you can see what they could do if aligned with the right organization. So why this is important, I think, why these types of assessments and diagnostics are important for inclusive recruitment is, I think, to push this forward, and make opportunities accessible for all is we've got to redefine high potential, what that looks like, and stop placing people in boxes. So this ties into unconscious bias as well. It's, I mean, organizations, and I've been guilty of this as a recruiter, going off gut feel. We typically, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but we typically recruit similar to me individuals who have the same backgrounds, maybe went to the same school or university, same qualifications, same look, same opinions. And we think, oh, well, she would work well in this organization because she'd get on well with Nicola, for example. And I think human nature is to play it safe. But if we have an understanding of all the profiles of your current staff, not only their behaviors, but more importantly, their impact, you know, where their strengths are, where their energy comes from, we can map it out using a lot of these tools. A lot of organizations will be shocked to see that a lot of the profiles are very, very similar. And it's just unconscious bias, that an implicit bias that is starting to creep in, because it's this similar to me recruiting. So once you reverse engineer all that and you start saying, actually, we want something different. We want someone that is energized by this, somebody that thinks like this, and you've got tangible assessments and maps of your organization that show this, you can start to, you know, level the playing field. And even though individuals might not look the same as you, sound the same, or have the similar background, you know they've got the potential to bring impact. And I think that's really important to really drive forward and move the needle on inclusive recruitment, because everyone's got potential, everyone's got a contribution to make. And if diversity, if we're going to make diversity work rather than just being a box checking exercise, people should not be looking and sounding like and acting like everybody else. So there's quite a few tools out there. One that we work with quite a lot, and is a very powerful impact tool for measuring impact, is the GC index, the Game Changer Impact Index. We can talk about this offline if anyone is interested in exploring this, but I'm really passionate about assessments and profiling for impact, really level the playing field and really start looking at individuals through a whole new lens. And that's pretty much it. I've tried to be as efficient as I can with my time there, Nicola, because I wanted to leave some space for some Q&As. But hopefully it's been helpful and relevant this Friday afternoon.
Thank you, Adam. I'm sure everybody's got a lot to food for thought there on, you know, and I know obviously you said at the beginning before we let everyone in the room that obviously it's normally a bit longer, so obviously you can be a little bit more, you could have kind of gone into a bit more detail, so I can't get my words out. But yeah, so, you know, thank you, because you did have to condense it into 30 minutes, so not easy. So, I mean, there's nothing in the chat, so I'm assuming I can't see anyone suggesting they've got any questions. So I think we will take that as a no. So thank you again, Adam, for doing the presentation. Definitely has got me thinking about some things. So, oh, we've got some. Oh, they're all coming through now. Hold up. So Philip's asking, what outputs has the GC index provided?
You can use the GC index on an individual level, just to see how an individual is, where their strengths are, where their energies come from, or whether they are a strategist, a polisher, a team player. There's 5 different proclivities. You can do it on an individual level, Louise. You can do it on a team level. So making sure that individuals are aligned in the right team to bring the best out of that team. And you can do it on an organizational level as well. So there's different things you can measure. A lot of it is around strengths, where the strengths lie, where somebody gets their energy from, their communication style. And I think important, it also breaks down as well areas that you shouldn't focus on as well. So not weaknesses, but areas that perhaps need to be complemented from somebody else. But it can be the basis of a lot of it can be basis for additional coaching, for communication, putting together teams. So it's a quite interesting tool because it measures, again, impact rather than just behaviors, who somebody is, which I find is quite static. I think impact means everyone's got potential to do more, be more. I think most people want to do more as well. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, Louise.
Hopefully, Philip, hopefully that did for you. So, and then Louise is just saying thank you. So I think on that note, we will wrap up because we've nearly done our 30 minutes. So again, just thank you, Adam, for your time today and for everybody for attending. And just a little reminder that the next session is the 20th of October at 11:30, and it's part of the award-winning series from last year's awards, and it'll be with Leicester City Council around why they won around the best workforce transformation and change initiative. So if you haven't registered, get registering. So thank you, everyone. Oh, someone's asking about slides. I think Grace will be emailing slides once she's got everything, and yeah, as we said, the recording will be available as well. So
no problem. Okay. If anyone's got any questions offline, LinkedIn is usually the best way to reach out, so happy to help in any way. But thank you for having me, Nicola and Grace, and enjoy the weekend, everyone.
You too. Thanks, Adam. See you later, everyone.